So there's four main pillars. There's kind of the 4-point pillar of a marketing plan. It's your identify stage, right? So we're gonna talk about this. So we're gonna talk about the identify stage. We're gonna talk about the journey. We're gonna talk about the SWOT analysis, and we're gonna talk about the trend. So the first thing is really identify. Define your target audience. Who is your target audience, right? We're gonna identify that. So let's kind of jump into it. So one of the exercises that I personally like to use, and for the people that are not able to see this, you're listening to this in your car or somewhere else, you can reach out to us, marketing@agency270.com. That's marketing@agency270.com, and we'll send you this as well. And if anybody who's seeing this and is interested, you can either take a screenshot of this or you guys can send us an email again at marketing@agency270.com. And what we will do is we'll actually send you a copy of this so you can kind of work it through together. But one of the things we like to do is specifically go after the identify stage, right? So we break the identify stage into 4 sections: the goals and values, challenges and pain points, source of information, and objections and roles. These 4 points right here, these 4 pillars and these 4 spots will give you exactly what it is you need to build out who your identifying audience is. Like, who's your target audience? If you don't know, this exercise will kind of help you get there. So the middle section is some basic information. What is the location that you want to do the most business in? I always suggest to people, small, medium-sized business owners, don't just say, like, for example, like, if you're a realtor and you say, I want to do business in DC, Maryland, and Virginia, that's a huge, huge net to cast out. And then you have to work that industry, right? So my suggestion would be, like, go neighborhood specific, or an agency owner like myself or any other business owner, like, go specific into potentially location. Now, if you are service-based, so if you have a SaaS company, a software company, I would say, the location for you could be worldwide, because that becomes irrelevant. Then I always ask about who is the ideal client, like what age are they at that they're buying this. I'm not asking you, it's a 25-year-old buying this. It's like, for me specifically, it's 30 to 50-year-olds who are brand new business owners, or getting involved in it. What's their level of income look like? What has been their past buying experience? Is their family involved? This is, again, a little bit more for realtors, like real estate agents, like family size. What are their interests and hobbies? What's the level of education and other things that are identifying factors? So this, for example, if I was doing this with Robert, and Robert, maybe you and I can kind of live play this a little bit. So if Robert and I were doing this for his business, for his real estate agency, I would break it down for him. Be like, hey, what's the location? What is the ideal age range? When it comes to age range for real estate agents, I would suggest you think about, do you want to work with first-time home buyers, move-up buyers, or downsizers, right? Or the people who get ready to move out of their home to, kids are gone, we need a smaller location, right? So, like, I would ask those things. And then really the only reason the income comes into mind is that if you want to work with first-time home buyers, but your income is at $500,000, that doesn't make sense, right? So those are some of the identifying factors. So
right.
Those would be the middle points. So I don't know, Robert, what your thoughts are with this, but is this something that you use when it comes to building out your business plan?
Yes, that's exactly something that I do all the time. It's kind of like just go all to the processes to make sure that what do you have in mind, it's that you're going to work within the structure that you created for yourself.
Right. Absolutely. Cool. Well, let's go on to the next item, like goals and values. So some of the things you want to look for here is, like, what are the goals they are trying to achieve and what are their values, right? So for an example, we're going to keep using Robert as an example. So Robert, as a realtor, like, what would be, let's work this as if you're doing move up buyers, right? Somebody who has a house to sell and somebody who wants to buy a home. That's whether the family is expanding or such, right? So for you, let's just for the sake of this conversation, let's say the location is in Maryland. The age range is, let's say, 35 to or 30 to 40. Their income, let's just say it's around 300,000 as household. Their buying experiences, they're not rookies. They're kind of in that middle section because they've had one experience already. Family size, let's say 4. Interests, hobbies, and levels of vacation, we can skip out for now. What would be the goal of the move up buyer in this specific section here, and what value would you add to this person when it comes to identifying them as an audience?
Sure. So that's it always has to do with the qualification, right? The qualification is very important. The why behind it, it's always very important. So you need to always understand there are wants and needs. I always tell people you have wants and needs. So you have to understand all those things to make sure that you really want to go and find, somebody says, well, I want to move because I need a bigger house. Okay, why do you need a bigger house? Have you thought about how big of a house do you need? Are you, because you are like in a process where you're growing your family, you need a bigger house because you host? I mean, I remember working with this client that she was buying this like 7,000 square feet home. It was only for her and the husband. And it was really curious to say, hey, listen, why would you need such a big house for you, for the
Yeah.
two of you? And she said, well, I host a lot of gatherings, family gatherings. So you see, you just really have to dig deep into those things to understand that you are working based on what your audience is asking you. So you have to ask plenty of questions. And once you have done a lot of those things, then you can actually create a strategy from that point forward versus just, someone. Yesterday I met with this person that says we were thinking about moving to a bigger house. And I said,
Yeah.
tell me why you think you need a bigger house. Bigger house has bigger maintenance, bigger payments, bigger this, bigger that. And then after they realize how big the house, something they didn't consider was the yard maintenance. I said, are you going to be cutting the grass? And they're like, no, we're not. I don't have time. I said, have you taken that in consideration into your budget? And he says, what do you mean? I said, well, you're going to pay a company to come and do it for you. Have you thought about it? And they're like, no, we haven't. So let's say, well, think about it, because that's something that you're going to have to do and you have to pay for it. So I think I opened their eyes to something that they, at the end, they said, maybe what we need, it's more of a luxurious townhouse with a 2-car garage,
Yeah.
bigger the square footage inside, but not big yard to maintain. So they themselves discovered that initially. So that's
So that process of elimination, right? Like
exactly.
you're going through the, and I think that, so let me tie it back to this. So like the goal for them is to move up from the smaller home that maybe like for like I need to move up because I'm going to have another kid, and then I need to do X, Y, and Z, and mom works from home, dad works from home, or whatever, they're working from home, and so on and so forth. But the goal is for you to help them in that process. The value you're adding, right? Again, and that's the goals and values. Like the goal of this person is to move. The value for them is to have more space, but also the value you're adding to them is the questions you're asking. Is the questions you're asking them to kind of help them make that decision for themselves. That says, you know what? I don't want this big house. I don't want to deal with the yard maintenance. I don't want to deal with this, so on and so forth. So that's a good point. It's like, through some of the questionings you may ask, you are going to get to that bottom point of your goals and values as well. Um, that kind of is a really cool segue into like the challenges and pain points. So talk me through, I guess, some of the challenges and pain points that you would see as when you're identifying an audience. And to kind of segue it up, it's, what are the challenges they're facing? Is it a smaller home? Is it a home that's not fitting what they need? Or from anything that's outside of real estate? I don't want to get too weeds into that with that, but like for, people that I have communications with, it's like their challenges is that they can't get in front of their audience in time, right? And so their pain point then becomes, lack of leads, leaving money on the table, not showing you how to close. But to go back to your example, Robert, what would be some of the challenges and pain points that somebody at that point, for you, when you're sitting down and doing this for yourself, what would you have as challenges and pain points, and what are you thinking about when it comes to challenges and pain points?
So the things that I always have to, the reality that sometimes we have to face these challenges and pain points for some people is not an easy process. There's a lot of people that they come to me and they come very just pretty happy about, hey, we won this, we won that, we won this, blah blah
Right.
blah 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 blah. And that really scares me sometimes, because I feel like some people sometimes don't take in consideration the challenges of any transaction or anything you
Yeah.
do in life. I mean, even go to the hospital. From the time you get onto your car to the time you drive to the hospital, can be you can get into a car accident, you can get a flat tire. I mean, you can get so many things. So when
Right.
people don't think about the challenges, it kind of scares me a little bit, because to me they're like in a la la land. So number
Yeah.
one, I always ask, I say, so you want to start this journey, what do you know about this journey? And they say, well, we don't know much, we kind of started the process, we think that this is something that we want to be doing, but we don't really know much, and that's why we are here. I said, okay, have you spoken with someone, that it never fails? Well, my cousin bought a house, blah blah blah, and my grandpa told me about. So I said, do you have a relative that you've spoken to about buying this
Yeah.
process? And they're like, well, yeah, we sort of talked to my uncle, and he said that I should not be paying closing costs. The seller should be paying my closing costs. I said,
Mm,
okay, what else? So then I start to just to like their beliefs of the process, what they
yeah.
have done, what they believe into it, what they can do and cannot do. So I'll go through the whole process with them. Once
Sure.
I know that that's already gone, I said, okay, so let me give you a step-by-step process of how this works. And then I go into highlight the process of, okay, here is how this is going to work. And I present graphics. It's very important that you have a presentation available
Yeah.
and you present these people with graphics. And graphics really speak for very loud. So what I would say, okay, so you already,
Sense.
this is where they start the process. So I will just highlight that, okay, here's where the journey. We're meeting today. This is the interview process. Then
Yeah.
we have to talk about a lender, the pre-approval. Then we have to go into the search, and the search sometimes may take you. So I kind of do a little bit of timelines into these things.
Yeah.
So once I get to the end, to the closing line, I said, okay, so this is the end now. This is the closing, the finish line. So how do you feel about this process? And they're like, oh my gosh, this is a lot more than I expected. I said, aren't you glad that we're having this discovery call that we or meeting, because this is really where you need to understand. So with all those things, I like to really make them feel. A lot of people, what they do is they just want to sell. They're like, okay, you want to buy a house? Okay, sign here,
Yeah.
and tomorrow morning I have a list of 20 homes. Let's start looking, and the first house that you think it fits most of the check marks in the list, then that's the one we're going to make an offer. Doesn't work that way, because what happens is in the process there is something called buyer's remorse or cold feet in the process. Once they are under contract, they'll feel some of that stuff, and believe me, it's very challenging. So what I always tell people, I said, you rather let's just face the challenges right now. And each stage, I have a process of 10 different stages, and each stage has a whole thing that can reveal potential challenges. Like,
Yeah.
okay, sometimes I said, okay, showings, when can you see homes? Well, we work from Monday to Friday, we have to commute this much and blah blah blah. So by the time we get home, we're super tired, so I don't know if we have time. So I said, okay, so only limited to a Saturday and Sunday. Well, sometimes on Sundays we like to do like day trips to the Shenandoah Valley, especially around this time of
Mhm.
the year. So we only have Saturdays. I say, okay, so here are the challenges with the market the way it has been on a Saturday when offers are due on a Sunday.
Yeah.
So then that's a unique challenge. So they start to then rearrange their schedules, their
Yeah.
thinking, their processes.
And you're
But
coaching them.
yeah,
Yeah.
only because you brought this different perspective. They thought that
Sure.
buying a house was just like going buy a pumpkin spice latte at Starbucks, right?
Mm.
And it's not like that.
You
It's
know,
it's
you do need to be sponsored by Starbucks. I think at this point, I think we need to. I think I need to reach out to headquarters and say, "What's the deal, guys?"
so so that's where this
Yeah.
phase is very important.
Yeah. Cool. So good points. I mean, I think the challenges and pain points you definitely want to go through. And kind of the last 2 points here that we can kind of breeze by is how do they get their information? What's the source, right? Like, if I am targeting Robert Garcia, how where does he get his information? How do they get their information? That's really good for you to know. And then, what are some possible objections that they could have with working with you and your business? And then, what is their role in the purchasing power? If it's a partnership, so if it's a husband and wife, what are their roles, right? So understanding that would be helpful as well. And that's kind of how you identify through that identification factor of what we do.